How's it going, everyone? It's Friday morning, and today we're going to be doing the oil pump on the good old JZ. Got the whole day off, so gonna try and get a whole lot of stuff done on this thing. Probably try and get the new oil pump in, hopefully get the timing belt on. I know it's upside down right now, it's hard to see everything. But if you guys saw my last video, I ended up putting the new water pump on, kind of giving an introduction to the engine. Put the new thermostat housing on. So we're gonna have to pull the lower oil pan, the upper oil pan, to get access to all the bolts under here that hold the oil pump on. There's an oil pickup in here and stuff you gotta take off. So hopefully we can get that done. Let's get going. I think that's everything. Maybe I can get lucky here. Just kind of oh, look at that. So I've actually never seen inside this thing yet, so looks pretty clean right now. I'm sure as we go lower we'll get a better look. So now we got to take these oil baffle covers off and the pickup to get access to the rest of the bolts for the upper oil pan. You got a couple 10mm over here. That bottom one, I'm probably not going to be able to get with the gun. So got a 1/4-inch ratchet, snap on, the medium size 10 on it. Should be able to do the deal. Snap on makes the best ratchets I have ever seen. The teeth count on these things is just amazing. Now the fun part, don't drop the nut in the engine. So I'm gonna try and take this whole thing out together. Oh, I got lucky. So it looks like we got a couple more 10mm to take off.
The Japanese, man. Everything 10, 12, 14, 17, 19, 21.
Set these back in here because I don't have any magnetic trays right now, unfortunately. Gloves. Best and worst thing you could use while working on cars. I always like to put the bolts back where they came from. Just makes everything easier when you're putting stuff back together and you got millions of bolts going to a whole bunch of stuff.
Looks like
The only thing holding it on is these main bolts that run along the whole course of the engine. So, to doing that. Those look like a 12 millimeter. I just had that thing somewhere.
nope, it's a 10.
You kind of want to go diagonal-ish when you're taking these off, just so it comes off even. You don't crack an upper oil pan. And of course they would make these 14 millimeters, like I just gotta make it different, Toyota. That looks like all of them. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Alright, let's try prying around, see if this thing comes off. I mean, I'm kind of in a bad spot right now. I think I might have to adjust. I got this stand from Tractor Supply, so it doesn't really line up too good, so I'm definitely gonna have to readjust this stud to kind of maybe try and reach this one. If not, we're gonna have to run 3 until this is done. So just give me a minute to do that. If you guys can see, this top stud runs through the upper oil pan. I'm gonna try and move it down to this one, which kind of stays with the block. So just give me a sec. All right, so as you can see, this is not ideal, but I ended up having to take the bolt. There's still 3 other ones on there that hold it on, but I ended up having to take the bolt out that was put through the upper oil pan to get it off, to hold it on the stand. I got this stand from Tractor Supply, so it's meant for like a V engine, so I definitely had to make it work. So try not to keep this on 3 bolts for too long. So let's see if we can get this thing off.
Come on.
It's one bolt. I just had to tuck it in the corner over here. Feels like RTV's holding this thing in. Try it without the gloves. Yep, there it is. There's a good amount of RTV on that. All right, so let's see if we can pry this off. Everything else has been coming out easily, so maybe we'll get lucky. Oh, these two go in the front. You want to do this very carefully. You don't. There's a couple pry points around the motor. You don't want to bend this thing. The screwdriver's kind of thin. Just look around. You'll see a couple sticking out. something a little thicker to pry that open with. Oh, there we go. Kind of just using the small one to make sure it don't close back up. Use the big one to kind of break the seal. Whoever sealed this last time, it was leaking, but they used a lot of RTV, man. There it is. Now you want to be careful. You don't want this stuff going down in your engine. So just be very careful when you're pulling it off to not get any pieces down in there. You just go slow. Most of the RTV will come off with the pan if you're lucky. Alright, so now that I got the upper pan off, give you guys a good view of inside the engine. This thing was really well maintained. Guy told me had, I think he said like 60K on it. So now I'm just gonna have to scrape all this excess RTV off. Go around with a razor blade, but first I'm gonna go eat lunch. Then we'll do that, reseal the pan, keep going, get the oil pump off. So stay tuned. So I ended up getting all the RTV off. As you guys can see, best way to do this is to take a razor blade and one of these little bolt-on scrapers and get them right at AutoZone. Does good. Now I'm gonna have to replace this O-ring, and we're gonna have to pull the front timing gear off in order to pull the pump off. Flip the engine over and do that. First, let's replace this, because this thing's freaking older than me right now. Take some brake clean, wipe all this down on a rag, make it look nice. She's coming slowly but surely.
If you got boxes, okay, you need to know, just let me know.
Okay. It's gonna be like that, huh? So, after working her back and forth, ended up getting the crank gear off. There's a lot of rust on the crankshaft. I think that was what was holding it on. So now I'm just gonna pull the oil pump bolts off. Start doing that. It's like a 14 maybe. I'm sure they're probably all about the same size. Oh, never mind. We got some longer ones. Alright, that looks like all the bolts, so let's try and get this thing out of here. Must have used some like AutoZone RTV, whoever put this thing on last. This thing came right off. Look at this thing. And there we go. Get the new one on. Clean all this off. Get her nice and clean. Replace all these O-rings. They look a little worn. Fun. So here we have our new oil pump, straight from Toyota. Got our new front main seal, just a OEM seal. This has to go right in there. So there's a lot of different opinions on this, but I always like to put a little bit of oil on the seal, putting it in, just so it doesn't go in dry and tear. I know some people like to put them in dry. That's just not how I do it. I've put oil on these just a little bit and I've never had an issue. So let's find some synthetic. Now you just want to take a little bit of oil. You don't need a lot. This thing's kind of empty, so maybe use this as a dipstick slash spoon. Just spread it around. Almost dropped it. Now we get a little bit. Put it in the hole. Make sure she's straight. Now you want to make sure you get the right adapter out of here. They're all different sizes. This is kind of a universal kit. So this one just about fits the inner lip. So let's see if we can put this thing in without tearing the seal. You don't gotta go too hard. Should just go in with minimal effort. Make sure you go in relatively evenly. If not, you get a bad seal. As you can see, it's not completely in. We're flush on this side, so I'm gonna have to go a little bit more. The top also looks relatively flush. Give her one big hit, so we're nice and even. There we go. Flush all the way around, no tears, and I'll just give her one more for good measure. All right. So now I'm going to go to put the oil pump on. And what you're going to want to get is some of this from your local Toyota dealer. It's Fippage, I like to call it. It's a liquid gasket. Should come with everything you need to apply it. So you're going to want to go and get a decent amount around this line. There we go. You don't want too much. Kind of trace the cutout of the pump. As you can see, we got a not too thick but not too thin line of fippage. You don't want too much because then it'll be getting into your oil passages and stuff's not meant to go in the motor. So apply generously. I'm gonna let this sit for a quick minute. I always like to let this stuff kind of settle before you put it on. I always feel I get a better seal that way. Looks like I got everything. Now just take your pump with your new seal. Get her in place. It's kind of hard to do while holding the camera. So we're going to set that down right here. Guide her on slow, but you don't mess up your crank seal. So the person before me that owned this motor actually was running a remote water pump, and he had to chop the oil pump in order to run that. So we're actually missing this top bolt. So I'll have to order that from Toyota and put it in after. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm gonna let that sit for a minute. Get the size. I think it was a 12 millimeter. Yep. Just kind of guide her on, crisscross applesauce, where you get a nice even seal. This stuff does take a little bit to set, so if you mess up, you have a little bit of time to readjust.
I don't know why the guy just tossed those bolts. I mean, it would have been nice to get them with the engine, because hoping it doesn't leak. I'm sure I won't have any issues, but that would be unfortunate to have to reseal this thing.
So according to the FSM, the torque specs on the oil pump is 12 foot-pounds? 15 foot-pounds. So I got a snap-on digital torque wrench. And I'm actually going to go a little bit more just to be safe, to get a good seal on it. So we're going to go down, down, down. I'm going to go with 18 foot-pounds. I don't know if you guys can see that. And this thing will actually vibrate and beep when you get to where you need to be. Go around, double check all of them. Kind of did a star pattern-ish at first. I'm just going around. It is what it is. And that's that. Oil pump is on. And I dropped the camera. So like I said, I'll have to get that bolt from Toyota. I mean, it's only one bolt. The rest are all in. I'm sure it's sealed fine. There's no gap up here. Looks like it's sealed against the block pretty good. So I'll already order that this week. Now, probably go around, put the timing belt on.